Today we have Dr. Fred Moss. He is a holistic physician, restorative coach, podcaster, a psychiatrist, expert witness at Welcome to Humanity with Dr. Fred Moss. Dr. Fred Moss arrived on Earth on March 1st, 1958, and from that very second has been earmarked to be a healer. The family he was born into was in chaos and in many ways was counting on his arrival to bring health and wellness back into balance. Little Freddie had his hands full, and over the next 6 decades, he has made it his business to bring healing to the world around him, not only to his family and friends, but to the community and world at large. What a journey it has been. Dr. Fred has been committed to the notion that communication, connection, creativity, and conversation are at the heart of all healing, of all conditions of all types. Without this, people simply do not heal. As the founder of Welcome to Humanity movement and at the True Voice podcasting mastermind and mythology, Dr. Fred now finds himself making the difference he came here to make. His years in the community, where he has been a physician to over 40,000 patients, and his story and adventurous life travels around the world has now left him uniquely qualified to remind us of what we already know. Communication is where love arises from, and speaking truth and listening authentically are the source of that love. Dr. Fred is married to his dream partner, Alexandra, and they live in the foothills of the Sierra Nevadas in Northern California. He is a proud father of 2 beautiful children in Texas and is owned collectively by 3 cats. So please help me welcome Dr. Fred.
So thank you so much for that introduction. I'm always amused by the introduction. I'm like, I want to meet that person. And, it's like, oh, that's, I get to spend all my time with that person. My 3 cats, by the way, are Despacito, Valentino, and Winston. And Valentino saved my life again this morning because he's a being from another galaxy. And he fully gets everything that's going on beyond any human that I've ever met, and might, in fact, be my teacher about this whole idea that connection is required for all healing. So that's a little shout out to my guy, Valentino, this morning. It could easily have gone to Despo or Winston, but today it was Valentino. So without further ado, I'd like to proceed. The original conversation of this talk is to how to get your true voice out into a room and then be applauded for it. And another way to look at this is, finding mental wellness and productivity starting right now. And I'm going to share with you some of the secret sauce ingredients for stepping to the front of the line in these extraordinarily and challenging, difficult times. I'm sure you all agree that mental health and mental illness are really hot topics in the world today, maybe more so now than in any time ever in the past. So I'm asking you to just think for a moment, what are some of the costs of this notion of mental illness in your community? What are some of the barriers that are in the way of you getting the proper care that you deserve or that your family deserves? What kind of attention isn't being paid? And what does the future look like if we just leave it as it is and don't do anything? These are difficult questions, and I hope I've left you in kind of difficult spaces. What if we could bring mental wealth to people quickly and efficiently so that they wouldn't have to wait in line, and they wouldn't have to even use insurance, and they wouldn't have to get a diagnosis, and they wouldn't have to start medicine. And, we wouldn't have to make all the damaging decisions that people often make who are having mental health problems. Well, I say there's something we absolutely can do right now that can affect that question. And that's what this talk really is about. The greatest threat in the world today, well, it's not what you think. It's not a virus. It's not climate control or climate change. It's not racism. It's not sex trafficking. It's not even war. Now, let's make it very clear. I'm not minimizing or diminishing the power of all of those things, which are true and honest threats to not only humanity, but our entire planet. But what I am saying is that there's a greater threat out here. And that greater threat is that for whatever reason, we are collectively losing our capacity to deliver our true voice. You see, true voice, authentic message sharing is going to be required to take on any of those previous calamities that I just brought up in the list. Without a voice, we will never be heard. Without a true voice, we will never be known. Without a voice, you can be hearded, by the way. But with a true voice, what you can get is access to peace and healing and love and respect. In fact, I say that bringing true voice forward is what it takes to end all wars. What is true voice? Imagine this was your last day in the world. Like you just got the ticker tape, you just got the memo. This is it. Today's your last day. What would you do with that time between now and the end of the day? If you're like most people, you would come up with a truth and then share it with another person. You might tell your loved one that you love them, or someone that you care about, or someone that you miss, or someone that you wish you would have contacted. Or you might even tell somebody that you stole $20 from them 25 years ago, but you would come up with a truth. You would want to reconcile something that you already know you're not saying that is on your mind and should or could be said. We really respect truth. And the fact is that truth has been altered and is being arranged for us in many different ways so that we sometimes don't think we know the truth. Henry David Thoreau said the following. It's beautiful. The masses of men live lives of quiet desperation and go to their graves with their songs still in them. Today, we're going to learn how to sing that song of yours and to bring a new level of peace and harmony to your world and the world around you. My name is Dr. Fred. I'm affectionately known as the Undoctor, among other things. I like that nickname. I've been a doctor. I'm going to explain a little bit about it. I've been a doctor for over 30 years, and I've been in mental health for over 40 years. I've seen over 40,000 patients, and I've practiced in every single area of psychiatry that I could find. I've worked in prisons, jails, orphanages, emergency rooms, inpatient, outpatient, nursing homes, orphanages, and even homeless shelters. I'm familiar with the countless modalities that are available to psychiatry to address mental dis-ease. And I believe I've really identified a group of exercises that are a special sauce to mental wellness, often overlooked and forgotten in our present mental health system. What else am I? Well, I'm also a 2-time college dropout. That's right. I was born, and I was born on March 1st, 1958, and immediately became really, really, really enchanted with the whole idea of communication. My family was in disarray. I had 2 older brothers, 10 and 14 years older than me, and they were looking for me to bring, they were looking for me to bring some degree of health and communication and joy to their family. And that's what I did for the first couple of years. I'm sure that my brothers eventually got very irritated with me. But what they did do to me was create a lifestyle that was very precocious. You see, I knew how to read and write and do simple math when I entered kindergarten. This was not entirely true with my peers. They were more interested in throwing blocks and picking their nose and then having a nap in the afternoon. By the way, I was interested in throwing blocks, picking my nose, and having a nap in the afternoon as well, but I wanted to read and do math too. So I knew that communication was something that I loved. I loved watching the 4 of them, my 2 brothers and parents, talk to each other. And I just knew that that's where the action was. So I figured I would learn, probably not in kindergarten. As I looked forward, I thought it would happen in the later years, 4th or 5th, the big grade, the big kids. It didn't happen there. And maybe junior high, no, disappointed again. And I went to high school knowing that that's where I would learn how to communicate, and it actually got worse. Eventually, I decided that it must be university where people learn how to communicate. So I went, because I loved the helmets and because it was only 40 miles away from where I grew up in Detroit, I went to the University of Michigan. Although I loved Ann Arbor, I really found that communication was not at the center of conventional university education either. In fact, open course was often totally discouraged. I sat through that for about a year and a half and then decided that I needed to stop college and get myself together. So I did what anyone in the 70s, late 70s might have done, and that was I boarded a Greyhound bus and went to Berkeley, California so that I could find myself. I spent a couple months in Berkeley and I did find myself, but I was found myself also without a job and without a real future. I told my parents that I was finding myself and they said, "Well, you got to get a job, get a career and then go back and find yourself." So I sauntered back to the University of Michigan and began to do what I thought was the easy track, which was to take on computers. So the only computer in Michigan was at the University of Michigan. It was a 2-acre facility and it was open 24/7. And we had these punch cards for those of you who remember. And we just punch, 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 and then we'd turn them in. And a couple hours later, we'd find out if the program worked. And usually it didn't. So then we'd have to fix it. And hours and hours and hours. And that didn't work for me either. So eventually I became a 2-time college dropout. I walked home and I told my mom, I'm never, ever, ever going to go back to university. That's not where this is. I want to learn how to communicate. She said, "That's fine, Fred. You got to get a job." I was okay, Mom. And she got me an application for working in a state mental health facility for adolescents and adolescent boys specifically. After orientation, I eventually decided that I would take on that job. And for the first time ever, was actually being paid to communicate. These humans were about 6 or 7 years younger than me, but I just loved talking to them, and healing took place in both directions as long as we could connect and resonate with each other. Again, I knew this from a child, but now I could see that it was actually had terrific healing quality. The thing I hated about that job, and I mean really hated, was how psychiatry treated those kids. You see, we would call the psychiatrist when someone was up too late or someone had gotten into a fight with another. Jimmy and Johnny got in a fight or Timmy was up too late. And he would come down from his call room and he would interview Timmy for like 3 seconds and then interview us, the childcare workers, for 7 seconds and then go to the nursing station with one of these, like to call his weapon. And he would write something in the chart and then we would have to go find Jimmy and hold him down while he was kicking, spitting, biting, swearing, pull down his sweatpants just a little bit and jam his hip through a full of, hard driving, very sedative medication. If Jimmy was speechless for the next 12 or 24 hours in a stupor, we would somehow call that a success. I found that to be totally barbaric and absolutely unacceptable. By the way, it's still going on in our hospitals in America today, for sure. But I decided at that time that I would go back to school and bring communication to the center of mental health, at least the way I do it. Now, my brother, 14 years my senior, was already a psychiatrist, so I knew it could be done. And I went back to school at Wayne State, graduated in Detroit, and then eventually got accepted in Northwestern University Medical School. And for too long, 13 years later, I was now a psychiatrist. In the meantime, Prozac had been introduced to the world in 1987, and that totally changed the entire paradigm of mental health. You see, we now had chemical imbalances as an explanation for not feeling well. We now had this whole idea of biological psychiatry. Frankly, the reason I went into the field was so that I wouldn't have to be a biological psychiatrist. And now I found myself doing just that. Over the next 30 years, I have written over 100,000 psychiatric medication prescriptions. You should know that each one of them tweaked me, every single one of them, and some of them were really major tweaks. So I was living a life that was entirely duplicitous. You see, I knew I wanted to do something different than I was doing, but I was doing it anyway. In 2006, I started to do something different. I started to do something radical. I know it's going to shock you. I started taking people off of medicine. Wow. Like, it's amazing that that's even considered radical. Like, we're not worried when we start people on medicine. We're worried when we stop people off of medicine. And sure enough, people got way better, reliably. Sometimes, and usually, their diagnosis actually faded and disappeared. That's how I got the name Undoctor, and I call that my true voice moment. You see, up until that point, I had been a doctor, but now I had become a healer. So I'm asking you to look at your life now and ask yourself, where are you still being a doctor and not yet being the healer you came here to be? Where are you doing what you're told or what people expect out of you rather than what you know you should be contributing or could be making a difference in? That's what this talk is really all about. So, communication, connection, and resonating are at the heart of all healing. We already learned that. I invite you to take a real look at what's here for you and be careful to be accepting, forgiving, and compassionate with yourself. When you start looking at where you're just doing what you're told, you may start giving yourself some trouble, blaming or shaming. I invite you to really get that we all learned very young that being someone different than ourselves actually paid dividends. I know that if I screamed a little louder, I got a lollipop, or if I blamed my sister, she got in trouble instead of me. And I definitely did that. You can make a difference right now in this area of bringing your true voice forward. I'm going to go over to a few principles in the next few minutes. Let's look at a couple things. Number one, pretending to be, now you know this as an adult, pretending to be someone that you're not in order to protect the person that you are is not only ineffective, it's completely ludicrous. If you're doing that because you're afraid you're going to be disappointing to another or disregarded or get in some form of trouble or disagreed with, that's going to happen no matter who you be. So if it's going to happen no matter what, I invite you to consider simply being yourself and taking all the pluses and minuses of being authentic with others. Number two, you don't have access to a lot of things in this world, but you definitely have access to who you are and what you say. You are not a prisoner of the habits that brought you to right now. You're really not. Over the next minute, you could actually do something you've never done before, or say something you've never said before, or be someone you've never been before. And that's one of the magics of what it means to be alive in a present world. The secret ingredient for all of this true voice stuff is called listening. Listening to others, listening to the situation, not just blurting and speaking your truth from the mountaintop, like I hate you or I hate that, or finally I'm gonna, disrupt the butterflies in my stomach by just screaming my truth. No, no, no. It's about moving the needle forward. It's about taking a conversation and actually moving it forward in an intentional direction that has a positive influence. That's really what I'm speaking to when I say true voice. Authenticity is more important than agreement or acceptance. We really know that. When have you ever been with someone who's diametrically opposed to you in a particular topic, but you can listen to them because they're coming from their heart? It's because authenticity is more important than the content being agreed with. Finally, you are an influencer. No matter whether you have, you don't need to have 1 million followers or $1 million to be an influencer. You already are one for the people in your world, including the people in the Rotary Club. When you bring your very real truth forward, you become someone making a difference, someone changing the world. And you will notice this not only in the boardroom, not only in the community, but in your own home as well, in the living room, and perhaps even in the bedroom, where it's very clear that intimate relationships are greatly affected when we're not genuine, we're not authentic, or we're holding back. So I invite you, as of today, to start now and make incremental changes because you got here for a reason. It's okay that you got here. You need to have conversations in order to make these differences. Conversations with your family, with your friends, your Rotary friends. I'm asking you to make those incremental changes towards that truth, towards that authenticity, and start feeling the freedom and power that comes from being that authentic self. You can't do this alone. It must be done with others. So I invite you to communicate. True voice actually can end all wars, inside and out. Give it a try. Let's call it the Great Reset. Speak your truth. Listen from your heart. Speak your truth again. listen even more. Applause and respect will be waiting for you. If not out loud, it'll certainly be in the hearts and minds of all of those who are around you. Welcome to your new life. Welcome to love and listening at the heart of all healing. Welcome to peace inside and out. Welcome to humanity. Welcome to your true voice. Voltaire said this: I may disagree with what you are saying, but I will fight to the death for your right to say it. I recently wrote a book. I know the title of the book, which took me a long time to come up with, will shock you. It's called Find Your True Voice. That book is available to you. I'm going to give you a free copy for showing up today. I'm actually even going to pay for shipping. You can find that book at findyourtruevoicebook.com. Just sign up and I'll have that to you by the end of this week or the end of a week. There's so many places in the world where this is a real crisis, speaking our true voice. I invite you to take the front edge. The people around you will be inspired. You can make that difference. One more thing. I am involved in a summit. The summit is called the We the People Summit. And the We the People Summit is a summit where I have assembled some amazing world-class influencers. The next episode of this is actually this Saturday. I invite you to sign up for that. You can find their sign up. It's a free sign up, wethepeoplesummit.online. You can enjoy my wife and I interviewing these folks. She's my co-host. My wife is a 100% Ukrainian nationalist or national, I should say. She's been here for 30 years. And the proceeds from this event go 100% to Ukraine and to the people of Ukraine who have been devastated and moved out of their homes and all the many horrible calamities and devastation that's going on over there. Let's see. And finally, I also want to say thank you for just being here and listening today. I have an evaluation form that we have sent to you. I hope that's in your hands. If not, it should be soon. And it comes with all the links. If you'd like to come and speak with me a little bit more about anything I've said, you can write to me at drfred@welcometohumanity.net. And I like answering my own calls. I don't have anyone else to do it. And also, I really invite you to check out the website, the welcometohumanity.net website, and come aboard to the We the People Summit group inside of Facebook. Thank you again for allowing me to speak with you this afternoon. And if there's any questions, I can take them now.
Thank you, Dr. Fred. Are there any questions out on the floor? Looking around. Well, Bev, you know what I'm thinking is that I'll send you the survey and the other information, and you can go ahead and forward that on to the rest of the club if someone's interested in that. Any questions? Second questions? I'm looking around.
Yeah, online, we don't have any here.
It's so interesting.
Well, that almost never happens.
No, you know, it's really interesting. So first of all, it's completely okay that there's no questions. I really get that. And I want you to reflect that no questions is the whole point of this talk. It's okay that you don't have to question. It really is. But we have become so flattened as a society. We're becoming so flattened as community that no questions is only a symptom of the whole point of this talk. Like, well, maybe I'll do it, or maybe I won't, or he's kind of interesting, or he's not. And I invite you to really, really take on. There should always be questions. Always question what's happening. When you stop questioning, then you're going to get what's coming. And when I look at what's coming naturally here, it's not entirely positive. So I invite you to find that true voice and bring it forward. And that's really the stand I am now. The other thing I want to say, if it's okay, Connor, is that I'm completely interested in having this message brought out far and wide, and fairly urgently. I have time to speak to other groups of other types, Rotary or otherwise. And, that's why Kimberly's here with me. And so if you can think of somebody in your world that where I can get some opportunity to get on that stage and speak this truth, that would also be greatly appreciated.
Well, thank you, Dr. Fred, again. And please help me give Dr. Fred a hand of applause here.
Thank you.